What colors does this dress consist of? Is it blue and black or white and gold? This question was asked by an internet user in 2015, and suddenly the whole world was in turmoil.
Ships are fraying at the seams over a photograph doing the rounds on social media.
Finally, on this Friday, a seemingly simple question for you. What color is this dress? Take a look. Take a good look.
That darn dress, you know the one I'm talking about. It's been inescapable today, dividing the world between those who see white and gold and those who see blue and black.
The photo quickly spread all over the world because some users saw the dress as blue and black, while others saw it as gold and white. Moreover, even the same user did not see the same color 2 minutes later as they did 2 minutes before. At first, you might think it's just a simple play of light, but the issue is much more complex. It's a fine line between perception and reality. I will return to the dress question at the beginning of the video, but before that, I want to introduce you to this man. His name is Ed Catmull. He once served as the president of Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios, but he has aphantasia, yes, mentally blind. He cannot visualize anything in his mind. For example, when someone mentions an apple, he knows it's a fruit but cannot imagine it in his mind. He thinks of someone he loves, but cannot remember their face. There is a name given to this mental condition, aphantasia. In other words, mind's eye blindness. It's not entirely accurate to call it a disease, because its cause is still unknown. We can call it a type of mental structure. Some people with aphantasia do not realize it, while others become aware of this fact much later. Ed Catmull is among those who realized it later. He learned that he had aphantasia while meditating in Tibet. During meditation, he was asked to imagine a sphere. But Catmull couldn't imagine the sphere at all. Even after going home, he thought about it for days. But a picture of a sphere never appeared in his mind. Look, we're not talking about an ordinary person. This is a person who has managed some of the world's largest animation companies like Pixar and Walt Disney. How can someone who can't even visualize a sphere in their mind be one of the leading figures in such an industry? After all, this is a field directly connected to imagination. He himself is surprised by this. When Catmull discovered he had aphantasia, he immediately talked to his colleagues. He saw that some animators were talented enough to draw what they imagined perfectly on paper. But eventually, he realized he was not alone. He noticed that some animators were in the same situation. In fact, among them is one of the best animators in the history of animation. Oscar-winning animator Glenn Keane, one of the creators of Disney classics like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Like Ed Catmull, he also lacks a visual ability to guide him. So how is he able to draw these characters that he cannot visualize in his mind? Keane draws from the power of emotion, touch, and movement instead of mental images. When designing his characters, he first imagines their emotional states and roles in the story. For this, he uses his own feelings and ability to empathize. He tries to feel the physical presence of the characters and how they move. When designing a character, he uses his knowledge of human anatomy. He has a method he uses when drawing characters. He uses a technique called explosive scribbles. Glenn Keane first draws random lines on paper. Then he starts to search for the form of his character among these lines. This process forms the foundation of the character's emotional expression and movements. This seemingly complex beginning becomes clearer over time, and eventually, Keane's iconic characters emerge. Keane explains this process as follows. When drawing a character, I first try to understand what they feel emotionally. I start by drawing random lines on paper. These lines help me capture the spirit of the character. Then, I add new lines, make additions, or erase existing ones until I find the form of the character within these scribbles. So, even in situations where our ability to imagine, like in aphantasia, is limited, it is not a barrier to creativity, as you can see. Because each of our perceptions is different, and perceptions are shaped by our own experiences. Look, here's another phenomenon that illustrates how different our inner world is. Synesthesia. This is the name given to the association of information received through one sense organ with a completely different sense organ in the brain. A person with synesthesia, when hearing the sound of a note, not only hears that sound, they can also see a specific color or shape at the same time. Or the letter A can evoke not just a sound, but also a bright red color. In fact, some artists associate notes with colors. French composer Olivier Messiaen says, When I hear sounds, I see colors, but I see them not with my eyes, but inside my head. Hungarian composer György Ligeti says that major chords are red or pink, while minor chords are somewhere between green and brown. All these examples show us how subjective human perception is. Look, there are even clearer examples. Visual illusions that we occasionally encounter on social media. For example, take a good look at this picture. What do you see? A young woman or an old man? In other words, what we see is not only shaped by visual information from the outside world. The functioning of our brain and our experiences form our perceptions. And that's why we all look at the world through different lenses. Even two people experiencing the same events, let alone two people, even two siblings, even twin siblings experience the world differently. A vacation they went on might be filled with vivid and colorful memories for one sibling, while for the other, it could be pale and vague. A scene from a movie they watched might have an emotional impact on one sibling, while for the other, it could be just an ordinary part of the story. Now let's return to that dress question from the beginning of the video. You know, the question that shook the whole world. The reason we see this dress in different colors is entirely related to how our brain interprets it. If the brain thinks the photo was taken in an indoor setting with artificial lighting, the dress appears blue and black. If another person's brain thinks it was taken outdoors under sunlight, the dress appears white and gold to that person. You know, I mentioned that fine line between perception and reality. That's the line. The way each of us experiences the world is different from one another. We can respect others' perspectives and experiences to the extent that we can accept this, because they are unique just like everyone else. We all see the world through our own unique window. The emotions we feel when listening to a song, the meaning we derive from a book we read, even the pleasure we get from tasting a dish, are as unique as a fingerprint. The question about this dress is not such a simple question. It shows us how rich the human experience is. We are all different. But don't think of these differences as walls that separate us from each other. On the contrary, they serve as a bridge that brings us closer together. Because only when we accept that we are different from each other can we empathize. And only then can we truly understand each other. If even the color of a dress can be seen so differently, imagine the diversity in our beliefs, preferences, and perspectives. Just imagine. Always remember this dress before judging others. Many different colors will appear before your eyes. Those colors will tell us how great a richness differences are.